If you're watching this video, something deep within you already senses that the outdated version of yourself is ready to dissolve, not in the physical sense, but at the energetic level. That inner signal isn't coming from your mind, it's emerging from your quantum field, guiding you toward your highest possible timeline. Right now, as you engage with these words, there's an unseen field surrounding you that's been holding you in familiar patterns, repetitive thoughts, and the same identity you've been carrying for years. Here's what most people miss about quantum reality and consciousness. This field isn't only in your head, it's literally imprinted into the very fabric of your reality at a subatomic scale. Have you noticed how the harder you push for change, the more you seem to stay exactly where you are? Or wondered why some individuals transform their entire existence almost overnight, while others wrestle for years with the same challenges, relationships, or financial blocks? The answer rests in what quantum scientists call observer collapse, and what ancient mystics described as the death of the false self. But here's where things become even more mysterious. There is a specific point, an actual measurable instant, when your consciousness shifts dimensions. In that instant, the old you, with all its limits and repetitive patterns, begins to dissolve at the quantum level. And in that dissolution, something extraordinary takes place. The universe itself starts reorganizing around the emerging version of you. Most people never experience this shift because they do precisely the opposite of what quantum mechanics implies is necessary for true transformation. They try stacking new habits on top of the old self. They attempt to polish their outdated identity. They try upgrading old programs instead of releasing them. But imagine this, that approach is like trying to tune a radio to a new station while still broadcasting the old frequency. Tibetan mystics expressed it clearly: you cannot pour fresh wine into worn-out skins. Modern neuroscience confirms this timeless teaching. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research at the HeartMath Institute demonstrates that when we authentically release our old identity, our brains rewire in real time. The neural pathways that once trapped us in old patterns begin to break down, while new networks emerge that resonate with our highest potential. But here's what most self-help books never reveal. This quantum leap doesn't unfold slowly. It isn't powered by willpower or positive affirmations. It occurs in an instant of total surrender, what quantum scientists call quantum decoherence, when the old version of you literally ceases to exist as a probability in the quantum field. Are you among the rare souls prepared to experience this? Because what I'm about to share will overturn everything you believe about change, identity, and the very structure of reality itself. You're about to discover why letting go isn't merely a spiritual idea, it's a quantum requirement for entering higher dimensions of existence. The real question is, are you ready to stop repairing the old self and begin allowing the authentic you to emerge from the infinite quantum field of possibility? To grasp why release is the only doorway to quantum transformation, we must travel into the deepest mysteries of consciousness. Every morning when you awaken, you're not just opening your eyes, you're collapsing endless possibilities into a single lived reality. At a subconscious level, you're selecting which version of yourself will appear in this dimension today. Here's what most people overlook. Each time you decide to be the same person as yesterday, each time you react with the same emotions, each time you choose from the same limiting beliefs, you're not just keeping things as they are, you're actively causing what quantum physicists call probability wave collapse, locking yourself deeper into that timeline. Think of it like this. In the quantum field, every possibility exists at once. The version of you who is confident, abundant, and living your highest calling exists right now in what scientists call a superposition state. So does the version who's fearful, stuck, and repeating old patterns. Your act of observation, your consciousness deciding which experience to have, is what makes one version real and lets the others fade. This is where ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science converge. The Vedic texts describe Maya, the illusion of a separate self. Buddhist teachings speak of anatta, the absence of a fixed identity. What sages intuited millennia ago, quantum mechanics is now confirming. Who you think you are isn't fixed. It's a bundle of habitual thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, creating what neuroscientists call neural superhighways, deep grooves in your brain that make certain patterns automatic and unconscious. They feel like you because they're so ingrained. But here's the revolutionary insight. Those neural superhighways only exist because you keep choosing them. They have power solely because you energize them with your attention, your feelings, and your identity. The moment, and I mean the exact instant, you stop identifying with these patterns, something extraordinary happens at the quantum level. The wave function sustaining that version of reality begins to decohere. The old self starts dissolving, not as destruction, but as liberation. This is why spiritual traditions speak of death and rebirth. This is why the hero's journey always includes a surrender into the unknown. It isn't just metaphorical, it's quantum mechanical. The outdated self must die for the new self to emerge from the field of infinite potential. But here's where most people misunderstand. They believe letting go equals losing something. They assume it means discarding parts of themselves. They approach it with fear, resistance, and a feeling of scarcity. But what if I told you that what you call you is actually the smallest, most restricted version of who you truly are? What you're releasing isn't your real self. It's the cage that's been concealing it. What you're giving up isn't your strength. It's the illusions that have been obstructing your power. What you're surrendering isn't your identity, it's the false persona that's been blocking your authentic light from emerging. And this is only the beginning. What I'm about to reveal next will show you precisely how this quantum process functions, why it feels so intense, and most importantly, how to move through it with grace and trust. Because once you grasp the deeper mechanics of conscious transformation, you'll realize that letting go isn't something you do, it's something you allow. Pause for a moment. Feel the subtle current moving through your body as you read these words. There's a shift happening, isn't there? Something that wasn't present when you first began this video. That isn't imagination, that's your quantum field starting to recalibrate. What you're experiencing right now is what physicists call quantum entanglement with higher potentials. The information you've just absorbed isn't merely entering your conscious mind, it's activating latent capacities in your DNA, awakening cellular memories of who you are beyond the limitations you've accepted as reality. Feel that gentle expansion in your chest, that soft loosening of something long held. That's the onset of decoherence. The old patterns losing their grip on your energy field. Your nervous system is literally beginning to harmonize with a higher frequency version of yourself that lives beyond the boundaries of who you think you are. This is sacred ground you're standing on. This moment of recognition, this stirring of possibility, this quiet opening to something greater. Ancient traditions would call this the threshold. Modern neuroscience calls it neuroplastic activation. But what it truly is your soul remembering its essence. Don't try to comprehend it with your mind. Let your being receive it. Let your cells absorb it. Let your quantum field integrate it. Because what's unfolding right now is preparing you for what's coming next. The deeper revelations that will show you exactly how to collaborate with this energy of transformation rather than resist it. Dr. Amit Goswami, quantum physicist and consciousness pioneer, has spent decades studying what he calls quantum consciousness. His research at the University of Oregon uncovered something extraordinary. When we genuinely release our identification with old patterns, our brainwaves synchronize with what he terms the quantum self, a higher dimensional facet of consciousness beyond the limits of space and time. But this isn't just modern science mapping new frontiers. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, written over 1,000 years ago, describes in exact detail the stages of awareness in Bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth. Remarkably, their accounts of ego dissolution and identity transformation mirror what neuroscientists are observing on brain scans during deep meditative states. Dr. Eben Alexander, the Harvard neurosurgeon who underwent a near-death experience, recounts his journey into what he calls the core, a realm of consciousness where individuality melts into pure awareness. His scientific mind struggled to explain what his consciousness encountered, a state where letting go of the self expanded him into something infinitely larger. The ancient Sufi mystic Rumi wrote, "You were born with wings, why prefer to crawl through life?" What he understood, and what quantum consciousness research is now confirming, is that our limited identity is not who we truly are. It's who we've been conditioned to believe ourselves to be. In the Hindu tradition, there's a concept called moksha, liberation from the cycle of suffering. But moksha doesn't arrive by gaining something new. It unfolds through releasing the illusion of separateness, the false belief that we are limited, isolated beings. Modern physicists like Carlo Rovelli and Sean Carroll are discovering that at the quantum level, separateness is indeed an illusion. Everything is interconnected. Everything is one unified field of consciousness expressing itself in infinite forms. The Zen master Dogen taught that enlightenment is dropping off body and mind, not destroying them, but releasing our identification with them as the totality of who we are. Recent studies in consciousness research show that during deep letting go experiences, activity in the brain's default mode network, the region responsible for self-referential thinking, dramatically decreases, while areas associated with unity consciousness become hyperactive. But here's what these traditions and scientists have observed that changes everything about how we approach transformation. The letting go process isn't random. It follows specific laws, distinct patterns, recognizable stages that can be understood and navigated with wisdom. 3 years ago, I was sitting in my car at 2:00 a.m. outside a 24-hour diner, crying tears that felt as if they were rising from the deepest parts of my soul. I had just walked away from everything that had defined who I thought I was, my career, my relationship, my entire sense of identity, everything that once made me feel secure, successful, and socially acceptable. For months, I had felt a strange pull, an inner knowing that the life I was living was no longer aligned with who I was becoming. But every time I considered making a change, my mind flooded me with fears. What will people think? How will you survive? You're throwing your life away. That night in the parking lot, I realized something profound. Those weren't my true fears. They were the fears of the old version of myself, the version that needed external validation to feel worthy, that believed security came from controlling outcomes, that mistook my identity for my job, my relationships, my possessions. And in that moment of complete breakdown, something extraordinary unfolded. I stopped trying to figure out what to do. I stopped trying to manage the situation. I stopped trying to appear strong. I simply let go completely. I surrendered to the unknown with every fiber of my being. What happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about how life works. Within weeks, opportunities began showing up that I could never have imagined. People entered my life who resonated with my authentic path. Resources manifested in ways that seemed almost miraculous. But the most profound change wasn't external, it was internal. I began to experience life from an entirely different frequency. Where I once felt anxious, I felt exhilarated. Where I once felt limited, I felt infinite. Where I once felt separate, I felt deeply connected to something vast and loving. That's when I finally understood what the mystics meant when they spoke of death and rebirth. That's when I realized why every spiritual tradition calls surrender the doorway to liberation. That's when I discovered what quantum physicists mean when they say observation changes reality. The old me didn't merely evolve into the new me, the old me dissolved, and the new me emerged from an entirely different plane of consciousness. This isn't just my story, it's the story of every soul that has ever experienced true transformation. And if you're watching this, it's calling to become your story too. Because what I discovered in that parking lot, what the quantum field revealed to me in that instant of total surrender, is what I've dedicated my life to sharing. The path isn't about becoming someone new, it's about remembering who you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning and fear, and that remembering always begins with letting go. If something in my story awakened a recognition in your soul, if you felt that stirring of possibility in your own quantum field, then you're ready to go deeper into these mysteries. Subscribe to this channel right now, because here we explore the deepest quantum reflections of consciousness itself. We dive into the hidden mechanics of reality that most people never discover. This is where seekers become finders, where possibilities become realities, where the quantum mirror reveals your true nature. Now, how do you know when this quantum shift is beginning to happen in your own life? The universe communicates with us through signs, synchronicities, and subtle shifts in the fabric of reality itself. But most people miss these signals because they're looking for dramatic, obvious changes. The first sign is what I call divine restlessness. You start feeling unsatisfied with things that once fulfilled you. Your job may be fine, but it doesn't ignite you anymore. Your relationships may be comfortable, but they no longer inspire growth. Your daily routines feel hollow, even though nothing has technically changed. This isn't depression. It's your soul outgrowing its current container. You might notice that you're starting to question things you never questioned before. Why do I do this job? Why do I live where I live? Why do I spend time with these people? These aren't rebellious thoughts. They're your consciousness preparing for expansion. Another powerful sign is what quantum physicists call reality glitches. You might start noticing number sequences appearing repeatedly: 1111, 333, 555. You might find yourself thinking of someone right before they call or text. You might have dreams that feel more vivid than waking life. These aren't coincidences. They're evidence that your consciousness is beginning to operate at a higher dimensional frequency. Pay attention to how your body responds to different people, places, and situations. The old you might have ignored these signals, pushed through discomfort, or rationalized staying in misaligned circumstances. But as you attune to higher frequencies, your body becomes a finely tuned guidance system. Expansion feels light, energizing, spacious. Contraction feels heavy, draining, restrictive. You might also notice that old patterns are amplifying before they dissolve. This is what consciousness researcher David Hawkins called the final purification. Your habitual ways of thinking and reacting might become more intense, more obvious, more uncomfortable. This isn't a sign you're going backwards. It's a sign those patterns are losing their unconscious hold on you and becoming visible so they can finally be released. Another profound sign is the arrival of what I call quantum mentors. People start entering your life who mirror your highest potential back to you. Books fall into your hands at exactly the right moment. Conversations unfold that feel divinely orchestrated. Opportunities arise that align with your deepest values and authentic gifts. The universe literally begins to reorganize itself around your emerging truth. But here's the sign that confirms you're in the deepest stage of the quantum shift. You begin experiencing what mystics call the dark night of the soul. Everything that once gave your life meaning feels hollow. Everything you used to rely on for security feels unstable. Everything you leaned on for identity feels foreign. This isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. It's your consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of the old self. It's the caterpillar dissolving in the cocoon before re-emerging as a butterfly. It's the most sacred, most essential part of the transformation process. But here's what I haven't revealed yet. The piece of knowledge that changes everything about how you navigate this quantum shift. There's a specific moment in the letting go process where most people retreat. A threshold that once crossed makes the transformation irreversible. And a choice you'll face that will determine whether you complete the shift or remain trapped between two worlds. Ancient alchemists called this stage the nigredo, the blackening where everything dissolves before it can be reborn. Modern neuroscience calls it the neural gap, the space between the death of old pathways and the birth of new ones. Quantum physicists describe it as the collapse point, the instant where one reality ends and another begins. But what they don't tell you is this moment doesn't happen only once. It happens repeatedly throughout the transformation, each time at a deeper level, each time requiring greater faith, greater trust, greater willingness to step into the unknown. And here's something else, something that determines not just whether you navigate this shift successfully, but how quickly you move through it, how gracefully you embody it, and how fully you step into the new version of yourself that's waiting to emerge. It's a principle hidden in the deepest mystical traditions, encoded in the most advanced theories of quantum mechanics, and reflected in the transformation stories of every soul who's made this journey from the old self to the authentic self. What is this principle? What is this secret that separates those who truly transform from those who remain stuck in the in-between? What is this key that unlocks the door to your highest timeline? I'll reveal it in just a moment. But first, you need to understand exactly what happens in your brain, your body, and your energy field when you truly let go. Because once you see the mechanism, once you understand the process, you'll never be afraid of letting go again. When you truly release the old self, when you stop trying to preserve, protect, and polish the limited version of who you think you are, your nervous system undergoes what neuroscientists call coherent reorganization. Every system in your body begins functioning at a higher level of harmony and efficiency. First, your stress response completely recalibrates. The constant fight-or-flight state born from clinging to outcomes, defending the ego, and chasing false security begins to dissolve. Your cortisol levels stabilize, your heart rate variability increases, your immune system strengthens. But beyond biology, you begin to experience a profound inner peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Remember my story about that night in the parking lot? The months that followed were the most peaceful of my life. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had stopped fighting reality. I had stopped draining myself trying to force outcomes. I had stopped wasting energy maintaining an identity that wasn't authentic. Your cognitive function also transforms dramatically. When you're no longer pouring mental energy into defending illusions, your mind becomes luminous, clear, creative, and intuitive. Problems that once felt impossible reveal obvious solutions. Creative visions flow effortlessly. Decision-making becomes simple because you're aligned with truth rather than fear. Dr. Bruce Lipton's groundbreaking King research on epigenetics shows that when we change our beliefs about who we are, we literally shift which genes are expressed. The genes tied to stress, aging, and disease become less active. The genes linked to vitality, regeneration, and health become awakened. You're not just changing your psychology, you're reprogramming your biology. But the most profound transformation is what spiritual traditions call self-realization. The direct experience of your true nature lies beyond all conditioning, beyond every limitation, beyond the stories you've been told about who you're supposed to be. This isn't an idea to grasp with the intellect, it's a living, breathing reality you feel in every moment. You begin to live from what the mystics call beginner's mind. A state of perpetual freshness, wonder, and openness to possibility. You stop reacting to life from past wounds and future fears. You begin responding to each moment from presence, authenticity, and love. Your relationships transform because you're no longer searching for someone to complete you. You're not seeking validation, security, or identity from others. You love from fullness instead of emptiness. You give from abundance rather than scarcity. Just as in my own journey, opportunities begin appearing that are perfectly aligned with your authentic gifts and deepest values. Money flows more easily because you're no longer blocking abundance with beliefs of unworthiness. Health improves because you're no longer generating illness through inner conflict. Creativity explodes because you stop censoring your authentic expression. But perhaps most importantly, you develop what I call quantum trust, an unshakable faith in the intelligence of life itself. You know, at the deepest level, that everything is unfolding for your highest good. You sense that the universe is conspiring to fulfill your highest potential. Why? I realize that letting go isn't about losing anything, it's about gaining everything. Pause for a moment, really pause. What if everything you've been taught about change, growth, and becoming your best self has been backwards? What if the path to your highest potential isn't about adding more, doing more, becoming more, but about releasing, surrendering, and letting go of everything that isn't authentically you? What if the struggles you've endured, the resistance you've felt, the seeming impossibility of lasting change? What if all of it was happening because you've been trying to transform while clinging to the identity that needed to dissolve? Think about your own life for a moment. How much energy are you spending trying to manage, control, and improve circumstances while remaining essentially the same person? How much effort are you investing in changing the external world while keeping your inner world exactly as it is? What would happen if you stopped? Not abandoning your responsibilities, not neglecting your care for others or your authentic desires and dreams, but releasing the need to be who you think you're supposed to be. What if the person you're striving so hard to become is actually a smaller, more limited version of who you already are at your core? What if beneath all the conditioning, all the fear, all the stories of limitation and lack, there is a version of you that is already whole, already perfect, already connected to infinite intelligence and love? This isn't philosophy. This is the direct experience reported by mystics across centuries. This is the reality that quantum physics now points toward. This is the transformation that becomes possible the moment you stop trying to polish the false self and instead allow the true self to emerge. The caterpillar doesn't try to become a better caterpillar. It doesn't go to caterpillar therapy or read self-help books or set little goals. It surrenders so completely to the process that its entire being dissolves and something entirely new is born. Something that was always its potential but could never emerge while it clung to being a caterpillar. What if your struggles, your dissatisfaction, your deep longing for something more aren't signs that something is wrong with you? What if they're signs that something is so right within you that your soul is no longer willing to settle for anything less than your full potential? What if this very moment is the beginning of your own quantum shift? What if reading these words, feeling these possibilities, sensing this truth, is your consciousness preparing for the most beautiful transformation of your life? The only question is, are you ready to trust the process? Are you ready to let go of who you think you are and discover who you've always been? Because what I've shared with you so far is just the foundation, the preparation for something deeper, something far more profound than most people ever imagine possible. There are levels to this quantum shift that extend beyond personal transformation. When you complete the process of letting go, whole new dimensions of consciousness open up. You gain insights, abilities, and experiences most people consider impossible. This is what the ancients called siddhis, the natural capacities that arise when consciousness is no longer confined to the separate self. It's also what modern physics is hinting at when it speaks of consciousness shaping reality at the quantum level. In the videos that follow, I'm going to take you into territory few are willing to explore. I'm going to show you what happens when the quantum shift is complete, when you fully embody your authentic self and operate from what mystics call unity consciousness. You'll see how consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it literally creates it. You'll learn quantum field techniques that allow you to manifest from an entirely different level of being. You'll understand why synchronicities multiply exponentially, why intuitive abilities amplify, why your very presence begins to elevate the consciousness of those around you. And you'll see that these aren't special powers granted to a chosen few. These are natural abilities, the birthright of consciousness itself, available to anyone who releases the false identity and steps into their authentic self. The question is, how far are you willing to go? How deep are you willing to dive? How completely are you willing to let go of everything you think you know about who you are and what's possible? Because what comes next will challenge every assumption you've ever held about the nature of reality, the power of consciousness, and your role as a creator in this quantum universe. And as we close for today, I want you to feel this truth. The version of you who started watching this is not the same as the version of you who is receiving these words right now. Something has shifted, something has awakened, something has been activated at a cellular, energetic, quantum level. You might not feel dramatically different. The change may be so subtle, your conscious mind barely registers it, but your quantum field knows, your higher self knows, the universe knows. And here's the mystery. The fact that you found this video, that you stayed until this moment, that these words are resonating in your being, none of that is a coincidence. Your quantum field has been orchestrating this moment for longer than you realize. Forces, intelligences, aspects of yourself beyond time and space have been guiding you toward this recognition, toward this remembering, toward this choice between the old you and the true you. What if the quantum shift isn't something that's going to happen to you? What if it's something that's already happening through you? What if every moment of dissatisfaction, every stirring of possibility, every recognition of truth has been preparing you for a transformation that's already begun? What if letting go isn't something you do, but something you are? What if the old you was never real? What if who you think you are is just a temporary dream, and who you truly are is the dreamer awakening? The answers to these questions aren't found in more thinking, more analyzing, more figuring out. They're found in the space of pure awareness that opens when you stop trying to know and start being willing to not know. They're found in the silence between thoughts, in the peace beyond understanding, in the love that exists prior to all experience. This is where the real journey begins, if you've stayed with me until this moment. If you've allowed these words to reach not just your mind, but your being, then you already know something irreversible has been set in motion. The quantum shift we've been speaking of isn't just an idea anymore. It's a living reality beginning to unfold in your life. The you that woke up this morning was operating from one level of consciousness. The you receiving these words right now has access to dimensions of possibility you didn't even know existed. This isn't metaphorical, it's quantum mechanical, and it's only the beginning. The activation that's happened during our time together is like planting a seed. Whether that seed blooms into the full flowering of your authentic self depends on what you choose to do in the moments, hours, and days ahead. The quantum field is calling you deeper. Your highest timeline is already beckoning you forward. The version of you beyond all limitations is ready to step fully into this reality. That's why I've created a series of videos to guide you through every stage of this transformation. Each one builds on the last, taking you deeper into the mystery, higher into possibility and closer to the truth of who you really are. The next video in this series reveals the specific techniques that let you navigate the quantum shift with grace instead of struggle. You'll discover ancient practices now proven by neuroscience to literally rewire your brain in real time. You'll learn the exact steps that transform letting go from a fearful leap into the unknown, into a joyful dance with infinite possibility. Right now on your screen, you're seeing videos that represent different aspects of your quantum transformation. Each one holds a key to a new dimension of your awakening. Each one reveals a missing piece of the puzzle of becoming fully yourself. Choose the one that calls to you most strongly. Trust that impulse. It isn't random. It's your quantum field guiding you to the next perfect step in your evolution. And as you click on that video, as you continue this journey of discovering your true nature, remember this: you're not just watching videos about transformation, you're actively participating in the evolution of consciousness itself. You're part of a living quantum field of beings awakening to their true nature, and by doing so, helping to awaken the planet. Welcome to the quantum reflex. Welcome to the reflection of your highest self. Welcome to the beginning of the most beautiful journey of your life. The next level of your awakening is just one click away.